Not sure if you can hear me.
We live. Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to another Network and Chill, first one of 2022.
Yeah, man. First one of 2022. What's up?
I'm Chris Red, and this is my co-host, Ricky Mason.
Yeah.
Network and Chill really started back in 2019 to connect founders, funders, and anyone in the entrepreneurial ecosystem through storytelling, education, and really making it a fun and inclusive environment. So happy to be back today, and we'll give a few minutes as people start joining before we bring our guest on. But we'll go into a couple quick updates and go from there.
Yeah. So one big thing, I want to do a recap of one of our founders from last year. I think we had her on almost exactly a year ago to now. And that founder we're talking about is Lauren Chitwood of Spiritless. So over the last year, Lauren and Spiritless have been absolutely killing it. Like one big thing, I know I just saw them featured on what was that, the Today Show?
Yeah.
So that's huge.
Celebrating Dry January. So they were one of the spirits for Dry January featured on national shows. So it was cool to see their growth and evolution and really seeing them being highlighted on a national platform.
Yeah, but just huge shout out to Lauren, man. Congrats to you and Spiritless and the team on the continued growth. And just keep making moves and keep knocking it out of the park.
Cool. And as we go into that, we really want to give a huge shout out to Amplify Louisville. Amplify Louisville is a place for tech-enabled or startups and founders to explore ideas, solutions, and launch products and grow their business here locally. We're still thank them for supporting Network and Chill and other great programs within the Louisville ecosystem, Kentucky ecosystem. Be sure to check them out at amplifylouisville.com.
Yep. Shout out to Amplify, man. Appreciate y'all. All right. So without further ado, we're going to bring on the man of the hour, Jeremiah Chapman of FreshFry.
All right. Looks like I'm here. Thank you guys for having me.
Man, it's good to have you. Long overdue. And, really excited to dive in and go deep with you today. I kind of just want to shout out a couple of things, congrats to you and the team. Y'all had a crazy, great 2021, right? So a couple of things I wanted to just call out, right? Overall Best Tech Solution of the Year for the 2021 Ag Breakthrough Award. You guys unveiled a new Fry Node Tesla kit back in September of 2021. And then I got to be a pleasure to see this in person, but you were also named the Emerging Entrepreneur by the Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame. So huge year.
Absolutely killing it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a fantastic year. And it's just all the more sweet coming off of what 2020 was for our entire industry. And then 2022 just looks to shape up to be that inflection point from managing to protect your downside to managing towards what the upside truly is. So it's the let's call it the resurgence of the food industry was not necessarily a V where it went down and came exactly back up. More of I call it a Nike check. It takes a little bit longer to get up there, but we're getting back to pre-pandemic levels in a lot of areas. But it's because the businesses are operating quite a bit differently. It's some people just pegged it the new normal.
I like that. And before you go too far into that, right, will you give, for those who don't know, who you are, the evolution of the company, and then kind of like you said, like inflection point from 2020 to 2021 and some of the things that help you, like those, pandemic levels and going back into the pre-pandemic levels, what has changed and what kind of helped you grow in 2021?
Sure. So I'll start with founder and CEO of FreshFry. And the long and short of it is we make long cornhole bags that go in the fryers and cleans the oil for them so they don't have to throw it away as often. So it's saving time, money, labor. But what we do in the background is we take waste that would normally go to a landfill and we turn it into an added value product that actually makes a difference in others' lives. So we do that with FreshFry pods today. Now, we've been around since 2016. We did a national expansion in 2018, and then kind of a lot of things broke down on our own supply chain in 2019 because we were scaling so much when we went national. And then 2020, we were growing at, I put it at 23% a week. We really started to hit a groove. Pandemic hit, we lost 90 8-ish% of our sales, all in a matter of like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then we had to spin up an entirely new business to stay alive, close the round. That was 2020. And then 2021, we started to see that traction get a little bit further. So it felt like our feet were in the air waiting to hit the ground to run. So that's what 2022 is the result of, is the receipts of everything that was happening in 21.
Oh, that's awesome, man. But let's step us back a little bit further and talk about like the origin of the entire company. So like, I did some reading and whatnot, and basically you were in college or just graduate. What was the?
Yeah. So I love this question. So while I was studying at the University of Louisville, I would take old oil from Wendy's, and y'all know which Wendy's I'm talking about. If you go to U of L, I would take that old oil and make it into biodiesel. But every time I went, they had way too much, and I was driving a '97 Pontiac Grand Prix with 3 5-gallon buckets in the back seat. Hit my brakes, they all fell over. And I was like, I can't. This oil is too dirty. We got to do something about this.
How'd you get the smell out of your car?
No, that car was no longer my driver. I just had to deal with it until I got something else. That's a one-way street when you drop that oil in your car. But so was doing that in school, and then I realized that no matter what I did, the oil was always extremely dirty, and it wouldn't make economic sense to turn it into fuel. So I was just thinking, what in the world can I do to create value for the folks who make this dirty oil? And then taking a step back, you realize the same reason why it's dirty is what they're putting in. So if you can get them to extend the life and not accumulate so much of those impurities, then it actually makes an easier downstream process. So that's how FreshFry was started in college. It started out as a means to an end. I needed to get some clean feedstock to turn into fuel. And then I walked into the back of a restaurant and just fell in love. It's where art and operations and just human interaction all come together to a very beautiful thing. That was that full-time jump that I made in 2016 when we decided to just forget my engineering. I can always be an engineer. Let's do this thing instead.
So you went from trying to solve the problem of like, let me get this cheap gas, basically to power whatever, to like, hold up, like if I'm gonna get there, I need to have this process, here first. That's gonna help me get to the cheap gas, So that's really cool, bro. And also, I want to say shout out to your grandma.
Yes, yes, she gave me that idea. We used to cook together, and then we would fry potatoes after we fried fish. So whatever else we fried would not taste like fish. We all know that those potatoes tasted awful, but it was a way to clean the oil. Now, it doesn't work in the same regard, but the idea of taking something that was deemed as valueless and saying, let's do something with it to extend it and make it more usable, which now you're seeing. So that circular economy, that closed loop, all of that, it started in my childhood in the kitchen.
Yeah, man, that's so cool, bro. Just like you would never think, like back when you were doing that it would turn into, a whole like startup and like all that. So it's just really cool to be able to like relate that experience back, with your grandma or something like that. Like experiences that we all had, to turn it into something. So that's cool.
Very cool. And it's super innovative, like something that I think many have not even thought of, like, what does this company do? And really to go out and be able to go get venture funding for that, right? And so I think that helped you work on your scale in the last couple of years as well. Initially, how were those conversations like going after venture dollars, and what kind of changed the trajectory being able to raise over a couple $1 million?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is pull the thread a bit about the capital raising story and the inflection points. So we started very early. That 2016 jump was a priced round. In hindsight, being 2020, I think priced rounds in such an early stage, you spend more time defining a valuation of a company that hasn't really done anything yet, which makes it a little bit difficult and a little bit more of a distraction. But from there, it actually gave us enough capital to make some early mistakes quickly, which we tried to become a manufacturing company way too quickly and worry about cost of goods when you got to worry about validating the market, actually getting the pod sold. And as a manufactured part or manufactured good, that's a difficult line to toe, which is you got to make product to test it at scale But to make the product, you have to get to a supplier that can make it for you, and they want you to make it in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of units. So that phase in the beginning can be very difficult, and that is actually what came up in our conversations. You had some investors that really want you. How are you going to get the cost of goods as low as possible? When are you going to get it to China? When are you going to do all this, that, and the other? And then other investors were like, what is your growth plan? And a lot of those had to deal with, well, how the heck do we actually put this stuff together at scale? So some of the inflection point was maturing a bit, and then also showing that we have been able to scale. So the conversations that we had early on with some venture partners were a bit of, the tough part is getting a straight answer sometimes.
Yeah.
But one of the straight answers that we got is we just can't get with the go-to-market. We just can't get with it. We can't get comfortable with it, which is, another way of saying you're not really in control of your growth there. You're not in control of your growth. So what we did is we went back to the drawing board. And then also, the 73X expansion being the number one item launched, beating out Beyond Meat's new product that doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
and then getting on the other side of that. So tasting what scale looked like, knowing where our process would break, and then fixing that. That was a huge sign of competency and ability and stick-to-itiveness that folks want to see in some of the startups that they're looking to invest in, especially one that's going into let's face it, we're going into frying oil. How many startups do you know going into grease? So it's like, okay, what is it about this founder? What is it about this team? What is it about the market that we can sink our teeth into, because we're going to trust them as experts in this very specific market.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking through. Like you have this product going to Greece, and I think being able to go raise that, you have to be great at storytelling in some kind of way. And I figured that you probably had a lot of obstacles or questions coming towards you of how can you scale in this type of industry. And I think, seeing that and you being able to take that head on and be able to close those rounds, it shows a lot of grit and tenacity.
Thank you. You only need one yes. We did get 698 no's.
Wow.
But a part of that was I went about it the complete wrong way. So that's one thing I like to really share with physical product founders. Who's doing deals like this, and then what is actually your fundraising process. And if you're not running it like a sales funnel, it's going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit though? Physical products, because that's one of the things that I was just talking to someone about. I was like, well, first off, like you got to realize like this is AgTech, so people don't even realize that we're working with AgTech here, and then selling physical products. Like what's that? What do you feel like the difference is with that and what we see nowadays? It's all SaaS, type of deal. So what do you see as the differences there, and what kind of advice do you have for founders with physical products?
Sure. So this is the way that I see it from my experience. And that the question becomes scale. How do you actually scale the process? How do you scale your company? And with a physical product, as much as your revenue scales, your ability to create needs to match. And then it's typically buttoned up with a lot of physical assets. So that when we hear a bunch of physical assets, and it's not just cut and paste. We just buy more of X to get Y. But no, we have to buy a bigger X, and conversion of X into Y is this rate. And then people start hearing a lot of, well, that's a lot of money. And then what is your yield? So on and so forth, which can be challenging. It definitely can be challenging. And then a lot of folks have this internal bias that physical products cost a lot to make until you hit scale, and then the costs drop magically. But when it comes in the startup world, what are you going to be doing that is so drastically different that margin is not just waiting for a big client to really make sense? So whether it is claiming a higher price because you've got a premium product that can do X, Y, and Z, or what we do is we start with products that people would normally get rid of. So our raw material costs are lower than industry average. And then we're buttoning it up with the ease of use, which gets our usage rate more than double the industry average. So then you're creating a lot more cash flow that way.
Yeah. So it seems like you going out to those customers first, proving that market is a lot more of it than like, getting that product in hands of customers and proving that they want it, they're using it, and that it's doing what you say that it's going to do is.
Yeah. And specifically for FreshFry, there are different customer sizes and ways they want to test. So a small restaurant, they may only need like 20 units to test. They want to run it for a week in a couple fryers, and then they're ready to go. And if you're working with a large multinational brand, they may want 10, 12, 14 months of testing, which is tens of thousands of units. Now, if there's a question mark, how are we going to make X product at that scale, or price the product at that scale, then those larger clients become kind of a whirlwind of how do you handle them? Because let's face it, the opportunity that people talk to me that say, oh, McDonald's, you got to get into McDonald's like immediately. And then you have to realize, hey, the sales cycle of some of these brands is larger than the life cycle of a startup.
Yes.
So how do you test, iterate, learn the sales telemetry, and then have provable processes that is resulting in revenue, which is the receipt of a satisfied customer, quicker than just going for the 2-3 year sales cycle? Because let's face it, we are cleaning oil, but we touch food. So it has to go through quite a few quality checks.
Yep.
It's a good point.
So
you're growing too fast and not having those processes put in place could, it sounds great, but as a founder, like you said, small teams, it definitely hurts you in the long run trying to go into those big contracts without really having that full process and thought, that in place and then planned out.
Yeah. The thing that I see is when you're going whale hunting, you gotta have some minnows and some other fish to eat to weather the storm of how long it's going to take to catch that whale. But if you're on that boat with nothing else but you're hunting that whale and it takes 2 years, you might die waiting for that business to close.
Yes.
But if you're deploying all of your resources towards this opportunity, you don't have the capacity to go close other business as well.
Yep.
Good point. And once you get those clients, like those small, medium, or large clients, right? Are they typically making one-time orders, or is it more like a recurring model where they now know how much they need each month? And does that kind of help you, have this more of a mature revenue model and kind of knowing the income on a monthly basis?
Sure. So when pods are used, they can be prescriptive. You know how many fryers you have, how many days you're open, you use one every night after you've fried for the day. So you should be able to pay basically a case of pods per month per fryer. So if you got 2 fryers, you should be ordering 24 cases this year. I can send them to you every single month to a month. When you go into distribution, you start talking about inventory. People may want to order a little bit at a different frequency, but the thread behind that is, can you just get folks to subscribe and just keep them coming, right?
Yep.
One key thing that the industry is used to is try before you buy, and then getting through their normal distribution. So sometimes it could be viewed as more friction to subscribe someone than it is just going through their distribution channel. Now, that can also be viewed as, well, how big of a need is it if you just can't get them to buy from you directly right now? Like, what's the deal? So we have some things in the pipeline that, you can buy through distribution. You get the product. But here's what FreshFry is. FreshFry is not just a pod company. We do X, Y, and Z. We've got some tech that lets you know what your compliance is, where they're uploading photos and they're just telling you on all of from every location that's reporting what's your usage rate, how often your oil's being changed. Like you've got a full diagnostic, and then we've got some other technology that's rolling out next to that, where it's like, hey, this is why you want to come directly to us, and this is how we get you on the prescriptive service.
Mm-hmm. That's exciting. How are those conversations going so far? And when do you see that full product rolling out for you all?
One thing we do is we roll out stuff pretty quickly. So, we've got. What's behind in 2021? We've also had 2 other forms of it already rolled out, where we're tracking compliance to folks. Industry average is 25-30%. We start at 70, and then we're touching 90%. And then we also get customer feedback directly in that same platform.
Wow.
That's already live, and that's scaled. And then, I mean, so the next product tomorrow. Starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes then. One of our core values, because we talk about waste a lot and how you turn it into something promising. We never let a good idea go to waste.
So, man, that's so cool, bro. Like I live by the, fail fast, fail early, like go for it. And it seems like the exact mentality that you all are taking with FreshFry. I mean, I feel like I've heard you speak to it like 3 or 4 times just in this 20 minutes that we've been on here. It's like, we were trying this, and I tried this with the oil from the time you started. So it seems like it's very much like almost the engineering process that you're kind of going through with everything. It's like, let me think about the problem, get a solution out there really quick, and like reiterate. So when you speak to kind of how that has been, like, I'm almost like I'm going to say a bread and butter for what you all are doing, like failing fast and failing early and getting those things out there. And can you kind of talk about where that has been helpful and sometimes where that hasn't been?
Sure. So that iteration process, it can get really fun and really interesting when you keep it all in house. You start thinking about the problem. What can we do better? What can we do differently? But it can also be a distraction because you're not actually talking to a customer. So it's that you can get in that mode of, we're iterating, we're improving, we're optimizing. But if we haven't talked to a customer, then it may not actually turn into revenue. Now, I mentioned revenue because revenue is the scoreboard that we look at, but it is not the reason why we exist. It is simply the receipt of doing something good enough to be paid for.
Yeah.
So if you're not the person that's going to pay that to tell us the true feedback, we got to get it in front of the person to do that, to give us that feedback. So where it doesn't work is when you don't step outside of the building fast enough, and then you get a lot of emotional charge behind it that it should work. This is perfect. And then you go out and then you get in front of a customer and you get shot down because of something that you're like, well, dang, we should have came to you a lot earlier. But I don't consider it a failure. If you get that idea out there and you get some feedback and it gives you that sliver of, okay, we can fit in right there. That is an absolute win. And sometimes it is by identifying where you don't fit as early on. So we value that. We look at those opportunities on a weekly basis. It's what else can we pick up that adds to that goal of satisfying a customer so much that they'll pay us for it. And then it just results in magnificent growth.
Yeah, and I love that too. And I think having those like smaller companies that you're working with, that you have those closer relationships with, that you don't have to go through the distribution channel with, those partners play key roles in, testing those things and getting those things out there quickly. So like building up those relationships with those smaller restaurants probably has helped you when it came time, for those bigger ones. So I think, just speaking to that relationship building and having those smaller early customers to like try that's huge to have.
Yeah, especially here in the local level. I remember your interview with Don G in the fishery, and it's kind of hearing those those alignments you have with local restaurateurs and that impact on a local level, especially after our year last year and how restaurants are, many fought for survival, and so having a partner like you it's so cool. And last year's also, I know you and your co-founder Jacob really had a massive goal. Earlier you were talking about waste, right? And I think the goal you made last year is to redeploy 10 million pounds of environmental waste by the end of 2021, and a billion by 2031. Like I guess like that kind of speaks to the values and mission as a company you're talking about earlier, not about the revenue, but about doing good and looking at sustainability. What kind of like led to these missions and goals for you internally, and what kind of discussions do you all have as a team around this mission?
Well, as I indicated before, we operate on some core values, and we highlight when we're living out of those. And we remind ourselves when we kind of move off kilter from that. One of the big tripping points of a startup is when you focus on revenue for revenue's sake and forgetting the mission of why you exist, and instead reframing that if you're living on purpose and on mission at your highest level, you should be getting revenue. So those to me, the 10 million pounds for this year and the 1 billion by 2031, that to me screams a company that has performed at the highest level to do that. And you have to generate enough revenue to push that mission forward. Now, something that makes me tick is something that someone has said is valueless, proving them wrong. Like at the end of the day, I love to prove people wrong. Now there's something living out of how you want to live, and there's of course like that's where I want to operate from at all times. But sometimes just when you just think about where you grew up and all that stuff, it's like, okay, it's time to show you that there's absolute value in this, and you just don't know how to use it. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to get the highest market value. We're going to scale it. It's going to be a world dominator when it comes to how we're actually redeploying things into something valuable. And we're going to have an elite team that can do this while they're sleeping. So that at the end of the day is what makes me tick. And the culture of the founder inherently becomes the culture of the organization. And then when you hire against that, you just cast votes for improvement or rounding out culture.
Man, that seems
I don't hire for culture fit. I hire for culture add.
Yeah, but that sounds like the story of, oil. They were getting the oil, throwing away the gas, and like, hold up, we threw away all this gas for years. What were we doing? Bro.
That's right.
Big goals, big inspiration. I think enough founders don't really tap into the mission and like that. I think especially in the evolution of a company, building the culture around something like that does change your trajectory just based on having a set of goals and missions and core values that you're aligning to will change the outcomes. And I love to hear that. And it sounds like it shines through your voice now. So I know it impacts the team in a great way.
Yeah, I think as far as like getting VCs involved, when you start getting VCs involved with your company, it's hard to kind of keep your vision and your mission that you started out with as the focus, because that is the focus, is profits for them, but like keeping that focus and thinking about that and making sure that stays a core value for your team, I think is, like you said, bro, is huge when you're a CEO and leading a company. So shout out to you for keeping that a core value and like instilling that in your entire, from your hiring process to the deployment of your product.
Thanks for that. And I would say, as far as folks that join us on the cap table, as you raise more money, what I have found, the strength of the founder begins to get honed in articulating your vision to those who are looking at, okay, how are you actually going to scale this? So what can easily happen is you raise money, you set out a plan, and like what happened to us, this is what we're going to do because we're growing at this speed, and then the market completely changes, and you want to take this massive pleasing action of like, okay, I just want to be a good founder and do these things because I said I was going to do it, but it wasn't going to work. It just wasn't going to work because the market has changed. When you have the right people on the cap table and you're able to articulate your vision and your core values, and here's how we want to do business, and everyone who has a role, whether it's your board or your cap table, so your investors, your leadership team, or everyone else, you let them know how they join in on that. Because if you don't let folks know how they can be most helpful or the highest and best use, you're forcing them to come up with their own. And as you said, Ricky, sometimes when they come up on their own, it doesn't fit what you wish they would be doing. So it's better to DTR, define that relationship early on. So when you're going through these market shifts, so on and so forth, you all can all pull on that same thread of what you said was important, and then they should be a value add to help you articulate it even further and join you on the journey.
What were some of those conversations during that shift, like from 2020 and talking to your investors? Like, how did you reach out proactively, reach out to them? Did they reach out to you? Like, how did you kind of navigate the drastic change in your business back then?
Can you repeat that?
I was just saying, like you mentioned earlier, that your big like pivot in 2020. This is kind of like with the restaurants, in the COVID pandemic. Did you reach out to like your investors, or did they reach out to you? Like, how did you navigate the waters, and or this kind of that communication pathway back then on this has changed with the market?
Okay, so before the pandemic hit, we had a term sheet. We didn't close the round yet, so I thought we were going to lose the deal. Honestly, it's like, well, that's it. We got to behave like that money is not coming. We had like 11. I looked at that balance sheet actually yesterday. We had $11,000 in the bank at that time. And that was it. And all our sales went down. And it was wartime, So yeah, in hindsight, I could have communicated a bit more, but I had a team to protect and a mission to carry forward. And that mission also looked like we didn't sell a single pod for 3-4 months. We didn't. I needed to sell whatever I could to survive, because I knew that on the other side of it, why I exist was still important. So we actually, I think it was about 40% of our revenue in 2020 was not pods.
Wow.
Just wasn't. And I knew what we needed to do, how we needed to behave, where our focus needed to be long term. So what kind of decisions do we need to make today? And the communication of that was just watch me do it.
Okay.
Just watch me do it, because I got to do it anyway. And then on the tail end of that is, look what we did. Now imagine us doing this.
Yeah.
Because I told you what would happen, told you how we would do it. I did what I said. Hop on board. Let's do it again.
Yeah, it's like you said before, like I love proving people wrong. Yeah, I love that, bro. And that's just like you said, the tenacity, the grit, and it's all come from, how you were raised and the things that you went through that made you the person you are today, bro.
Thank you.
So did I also see now, like I know you said your national distribution. Most recently, that's the announcement that you guys are now in Canada. Is that correct?
Full in North America now. That's right.
Congrats, man. That's cute. Yeah, how does it feel like to see expanding new places outside just the United States now? Like, I think those are potentially for you like small milestones, but they're like huge on your growth and now being all through North America. What does that mean for the company, and what else do you all have in store for your expansion throughout this year?
Well, we were moving so fast that it took us 3 weeks after we sent the product out to realize, holy crap, we just expanded into another country.
Yeah.
And the second part of that was we got the signal to expand to another country, and we were able to do it like that. So before, we wanted to expand from Louisville into all the surrounding states, and it took us 9 months to do it. It took us 9 months to do that whole thing, and the supply chain still broke after we launched because we weren't prepared to sustain it. And now we're just able to sign a couple docs and get some product moving. Ask the real questions of not how do we get into Canada, how do we get volume through? How do we make sure the customers are loving what we do? How do we serve them better through you? Because we're in Kentucky. How the heck do we serve the entirety of Canada? So it's about partnership. And that's just a testament to our team and then what we've gone through and understanding what the important part of the deals are, because it's one thing to open doors of distribution, and it's another thing to get throughput or velocity through distribution.
Yeah. You spoke to the team.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking about team there, man. And, but how big, has the team been, and like that growth of your team? Because I know it was 2 of you all initially, and y'all have grown to 10?
Yeah, we've got 12 people now. And we were at 3 people like a little bit over a year ago. And that same example of expanding into Canada, 95% of that happened without me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, okay, what are the implications of this? How are we fully supporting it? And then I'm able to stay in my highest and best use, which is making every resource available to my team to execute at that level.
Yeah.
So having a team that takes me up on that it's a gift. Having a team that says, okay, I'm going to take you up on me running this. You got to let me run it, and you got to make the resources available. But yeah, I'm going to get it done, and then that kind of stuff happens. So it's an absolute gift. I've held every role that everyone is doing right now, and the folks on the team do it 10 times better than me. So what more could you want than having someone who is better than you wanting to join the journey with you?
Yeah. It speaks a lot. I mean, we always talk about right now, currently, you always hear about the workforce development. And so for you to be able to find the right people to put into places that help them be the best version of them, how did you go about hiring those, from going from 3 to 12? What was the hiring process look like? And how were you to find the right people to join the team when, so many people are having challenges finding the right talent?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, you cast votes to add to culture, not just for culture fit, because you got to think we've 4x'd our team. So culture fits. You're not going to find. You got to find people that can get you where you want to go. And then the hiring process, it was built in real time. It's like, okay, we had an interview. We should probably have another one. We should probably understand this, that, and the other, and job descriptions like this, and talking to the founders. So I talked to Nick Mattingly about Workable. I'm like, okay, how are you managing all your applications coming in? What's your toolkit? And we just start knocking them down, getting better and better. And then it was January of 2021 that I had 2 folks. I was like, okay, we have one position, but both of these people are like rock solid people. And I feel like we can't make a bad decision here. But they're like, we got 2 of them. And then you take all that process aside, you take it and you throw it aside, and you're like, okay, just get the people on the bus. So hire them both. And what was wild was during the hiring process, I'm talking to a person about their role saying, I want to bring in someone else to directly fill that, and you do this, and negotiating all of that in real time. So while we had a hiring process, the gut came in, the audacity to hire the talent that we ran into and figure it out in real time. And then also, you have the capital partners who, gave you the ammo to, shoot those kind of shots.
That's good to hear, man. I think that's so cool because at the end of the day, you want to get the right people in place, and then you kind of direct them. Like, you got to find the talent, bring them on, and having a team willing to move positions and this being a team player, it speaks to not only, like you said, having a process in place, but also, hey, listen to my gut. This is a huge opportunity. Let's not miss this. And it probably helps you scale it in another way, because at the end of the day, we only are people. We only get us the team, the people we have in place, and you've been speaking to that all night. So that's really something I think a lot of us got to understand is finding the right people it can take time, but when you do that, it really allows you to grow and scale in ways that typically other people have trouble with.
And then speaking on growth and scale, so we talked about how FreshFry started with your mission of creating the diesel. So does FreshFry get back to creating diesel, or what's the mission there with, what's next steps with the big picture and vision for FreshFry?
So where we are at our core is we take waste and turn it into something valuable. So it does beg the question of, okay, so what is next? And then we just look at the markets that we touch. I mean, let's face it, people spend over $80 billion in frying oil. Frying oil has almost tripled in the past over the past year. So the economic prices are increasing. And then on the other side of the downstream market, you have refineries that are going to be competing for access to debt and access to capital because the broad investment markets are not investing in some of these petro companies. So what are they going to do? And you find yourself in the middle. You find yourself touching in the environment where the oil is going through that has a lower carbon intensity. So how do we get into it? We have a really good idea. Okay. We don't let it go to waste. We get it in front of a customer as fast as possible. They grow it, scale it, or break it, and we do it again. As long as we keep that mission in the forefront of our mind is redeploying waste, that's what we do. Now, as I see it today, the biggest advantage that we have for the market is information of knowing when oil is bad, where it's at. And the biggest need of the market is feedstock for any downstream items. So what we do in the back of a restaurant in the oil, we can do downstream before it goes into that hydro processing, diesel, sustainable aviation fuel markets, all those things. So there's an opportunity there. It's just making the right relationships in this environment. So we're excited about the opportunity. We do have a mission to put, as one of our investors said, pods in the streets. Put some more pods in the streets because there's a very core part of this of making sure you're creating something of value so much that people are willing to pay for it, because that's the engine that keeps the thing going. Because we don't want to rely on folks being emotionally attached and wanting to feel good to buy the product. We want them to critically need it, and it just so happens to care about the planet as well.
Yeah, big goals, man.
I mean, why not?
Why not, right? Why not, right? Why not? And that's the piece. Like I think you're speaking to something that I think not enough founders do. Like at least in our local ecosystems, have these big moonshot goals. Right? Why? Like you said, why not? Like this is what you're here for. And you're more than cut out to do that. And we have, great support systems here locally to do so. So why not?
Spot on.
Yeah. Shifting gears just a little bit, we have a few minutes left, so I'll definitely want to be respectful of your time. But talking about the local ecosystem here in Kentucky, I think from 2016 to now, kind of curious, what were some of your obstacles and challenges, not only as a founder, but also a Black founder in the ecosystem? And from 2016 to now, how have you seen the ecosystem change, and what else is missing from the ecosystem that you like to see down the line?
Well, I'll be first to admit that I interact with the Louisville ecosystem like a groundhog. I show up like a couple times, then I go back into the hole and work at it. So I don't know if my experience is because this is a very relationship-driven ecosystem or what. But our last fundraising, we didn't get much capital. We didn't get any new capital from the city. So our big round came from money all outside of the city. And I don't know if that is but then you see other deals happening, and there is funding at that level. It doesn't come to us. So my experience has been the ecosystem is very friendly. I wish the ecosystem would be a bit more direct with feedback in a way that is actionable. So can we be the community that actually gives the real feedback? But also the community that what's the best way to put this? Understand that the risk is within the business already, and let's not try to price the risk or try to steer the founder out of risk, because startups are intrinsically risky.
Yes.
So the ecosystem should be driven to maximize the outcome, not minimize the downside.
Absolutely.
That's the hardest portion. So when you're talking about price rounds really early, when you're talking about your biggest negotiation or valuation caps because you don't want it to get too high,
Yeah.
I understand that people got to make returns, people got to make money, but you also make money not by setting the perfect valuation cap, but by actually
Yeah.
achieving the outcome.
Yep.
So how can we be an outcome driven, real feedback given? That kind of rhymes a bit.
Yeah.
Community.
Yep.
And my part as a founder is to do that now. So I contribute to startups in small ways. I mean, I got to keep, so the mindset of investing in our community doesn't happen when I get to this point or have this event or have this exit, I'll have enough cash to do this, that, and the other. No, do it now, because what makes you think that you're going to be a generous person if until that point you've been stingy? Like, be that person now, and the scale of that being will grow, versus wait for this milestone and then that day will come. So I do that as a founder, and I could do a better job of making Groundhog's Day at least twice a year instead of once a year for things like this. And then also specifically for my physical product founders, I have a special place in my heart for them because I understand that. So I just make myself available to those founders who need manufacturing service agreements, who need to understand what it's like to work with toll processors, MVPs versus, and everything in between, and understanding your costs and understanding how this market and maybe even other markets will drive you to a strong cost of goods, a unit economics extremely early to help the risk when, I mean, if anything has shown us in this inflation, there's this belief that prices only go down. But what the heck has been happening over the past year?
Yeah.
When need and demand is there, prices can go up, and they have. So what can you do as a company that is built for risk? Take it to get to that maximum point, because then you can always lower your price if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man. I think we got one thing I want to unpack a little bit, like you talking about that transparency and that feedback loop, and really like this fixation. It's been a problem on price rounds, and really the valuation, the early stage for these early stage companies, really where it should be more safe notes, more convertible notes at that stage, and really kicking that valuation down the line. And really, I've seen a lot of, like you said, like those price rounds at an early stage could not help, but almost deter a company at an earlier stage, especially if you're going to go raise additional capital down the line. And like I said, like we have to be, this ecosystem has to be more risk averse, like you said, and think about outcomes and not downside. And so you hit on a lot of points, and I think probably talked to enough founders now, so like your learnings, you probably are passing that off, because I think the number one thing is like sharing that knowledge and sharing that experience at an earlier stage for founders before they get into the conversation with investors is so key. I'm having a lot of those conversations because, and not enough founders even realize that, and sometimes can get yourself into terms that are not favorable to you for your long-term trajectory.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think we've heard partnerships, relationships, whatever type of ship you have, just make sure that it's selling right. And going in the right direction and meeting the mission and the goal. And I think that's key. Like you said, keeping that mission at heart, man.
Yeah, we got a quick question coming from one of our audience. Someone's tuning in, and they're asking, who are some individuals or companies you learn from or take insights on how to improve?
That changes. I have two modes of thought here. One is, I think of, so what is something that I am absolutely working on right now, and I cafeteria it. I get it from as many places as possible. So I'll read as many books as possible. I may even just pick up the chapter and just read that chapter on that thing, because I have the context of my world. I don't need to have the context of this person who did this in 2008. I don't need that. I know what I'm dealing with. I'm trusting my gut. I need more information to make it actionable. And then as far as folks go, my board has been absolutely wonderful. I look at folks who are one step ahead and 3 steps ahead, and then interact with them. So some very So one of my board members, Alex Frohmeyer, has always been a huge help to me as a founder. And then our investors, Lightship has been a wonderful group when it comes to strategy on scaling and thinking about things a little bit differently. And then our other partner in Open Prairie has been just dealing with large systems as a whole. But I also, but when I take the mindset of cafeteria-ing things, then it's my conversations with everyone that gives me something on how to improve. So if I am focused on decision making, I will just talk to anyone I can about decisions that they've made, and I will pick up little things here and there. So right now it's about managing for success, for upside out, instead of managing out of protecting downside. So you'll notice we talked about that quite a bit today, because I'm practicing that stuff in real time. So when I'm listening to you two today, and it's what you're saying, what you're agreeing with, the stories that you tell me back, that all gives me feedback. So I can't pinpoint it to just specific people, but concepts and ideas along the journey. And then I just have as many interactions as possible with anyone with that in mind.
Like that's a gem right there. I think we all can learn from that, right? Like learning in real time and realizing everyone around us could be a mentor in some kind of way or an advisor, and being able to have that listening cap on and taking that feedback and process it. I think that's great. That's a great answer, Jeremiah.
Yeah, and then we got a statement more so here from Sam Harris. I can't see it to the camera.
Work with some of the big food brands in Louisville who have a foothold in Canada already may be a great way to start thinking of Yum, Papa John's, maybe Texas Roadhouse if they have made that leap. So just a shout out to you and your expansion, man. So very cool. I love the interaction, and I'm glad to hear some of the questions coming through from some other founders, other people in the industry, and those really maybe starting companies, looking to start companies. So definitely appreciate that. Not only the statements, but the questions.
Yeah, I just want to appreciate the fact that I can receive a thought from someone about approaching a company in a different country. And it's beautiful. Also, something else about Louisville. All those companies are Louisville companies. Shouldn't have to be in Canada to tackle those things, but sometimes it happens like that. Yeah. So I'm both grateful that Sam can make a suggestion that is a very reasonable suggestion, and also eager to see the day that the next Sam can say, I know how to do that in Louisville today.
Yeah. I mean, something like, I think being able to do some more stuff locally, stuff like, it's a big, I think, driver for us all, and seeing some of those changes. And I think we're starting to see some momentum, and I think we started seeing those things happen. Like you said, it's an iterative process. You have to continue to pound the pavement and step by step. But I think we've seen a lot of growth and expansion here locally, and hopefully over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, we'll see a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, and being from Louisville, just like you, I mean, I want to see these companies come in and support our local companies, because that's the only way we're going to see our ecosystem grow, wealth grow in our city. And we need the support of our local businesses, and I mean, our local large international businesses from that regard, like to get behind our local small businesses and startups to see that to fruition. Like these other cities didn't just become what they are from a bunch of small businesses working with each other. There were support from, large institutions and large businesses in those areas that wanted to see that growth, within that area. So I definitely agree with you, bro, and think that we could do better as a city.
And to your point, it is already improving. Like you said, so that I hold that same eagerness to watch it come to full life and be a part of it now. And I also apologize. I was completely naturally lit, and now it's all gone. So I feel like I'm in a cave right now. So I'm trying to turn up the brightness. But there's a question here from my old wrestling coach, which
Oh.
is, what's up, Coach Point? How has FreshFry changed my views on life now that I'm working globally? I've always had delusions of grandeur, so that point that's always been there. But one of the most incredible things that FreshFry has given me is the feeling of operating out of purpose. And when you know what that feels like, you can recall all the times that you weren't operating from it. And now that global view is just a deeper sense of responsibility and delight in how far reaching what came from here can be. So now the food that people eat in a different country is going to be impacted by an idea I had when cooking with my grandmother in the West in Louisville. So I just love that. And I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still myself. So it has refined my views and heightened my appreciation for living out of that versus just chasing what I think other folks would expect of me.
Wow, I think that's a perfect way to end, Jeremiah. I want to appreciate and thank you for operating on a purpose, right? Being a part of this startup ecosystem, growing, thriving, making impact, and not only for what you've done with you and your company, but personally, I think you've been a great friend to Ricky and I, and we enjoy collaborating and just having fellowship with you anytime we can. So definitely a huge shout out to you and really taking some time. I think everyone was really excited to hear from you today, and really hearing your story and the impact that you're making has been a pleasure to talk to you today.
Yeah, man, definitely. And I got to say shout out to the engineers before we get off of here.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You can't have a conversation without letting folks know you're in engineering. I've appreciated our time together.
Yeah. Thank you again. Take care. And thank you everyone for joining tonight. And we'll catch you next month.
Peace.
Peace.